Hello, welcome. This is Kate Mackenzie, welcoming you to a wondrous interview with therapist Kate Daisy Grant, who is talking about her wonderful book and series of workshops with Rachel Blackman coming up around somatic resourcing during different seasons. And we're particularly talking about the darker months and considering what kind of resourcing and how you might think of resourcing from your own experiences and other ideas they're going to bring in. I think it's a really enriching conversation and nourishing, just bringing attention to the time that you're in, wherever you're in. We're focusing particularly on the darker months, the cold, going inward, but also we talk about deep brain reorienting and the deep brain and your inner witness. So I love this conversation. I hope you do. And I'm wishing you well. Thanks. So welcome, Kate Daisy Grant, today, and welcome to talking about your Aliveness Lab, somatic, and your upcoming work as well, especially around resources, seasonal resources.
Yeah.
You're going to talk especially around seasonal resources for the darker months.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you are a musician and you've created music to calm the nervous system, particularly Lullaby, which I've been to a concert of, where we all lay down with blankets and pillows and were lullabied into calmness and bliss, which is amazing. You're also a therapist trained in many modalities, especially around the body and trauma. Mm-hmm. And you've now created resources with Rachel Blackman, with workshops and a book with resources connecting to seasons and I imagine our daily lives.
Yeah.
And you're focusing at the moment, especially on the darker seasons and how to bring our aliveness and lightness to the darker months. So that would feel like a lovely place to start, if you'd be happy to start with bringing that resourcing to the darker months.
Yeah, sure. So with Rachel Blackman, who's a wonderful somatic educator and coach and trainer of somatic coaches, we've been friends for many years and we've always had very interesting conflabs about things that we've learned that don't always fit into our one-to-one sessions with clients, because when a client's in front of you, you need to be with what they're bringing, not have you tried this new trick, how about trying a little bit of that, because it'll feel really misattuned, of course. And so we ended up with this beautiful stash of very usable, adaptable resources and little tips and tricks to feel more wellness and whatever resource needs to be kind of implanted into the difficulties of life. We sort of have a little tool for most things, just to sort of add comfort and goodness and awaken your own resilience, or I don't know, comfort, all the good stuff that our systems naturally know what to do if we give them the space and the encouragement to. Our own regulation, for example. And so what we've done is begun to work towards a book of these tools, but weaving them into a sort of diurnal, seasonal map. And how we're working at the beginning is to present seasonal invitations in online workshops. So we have an upcoming workshop on the 18th of November, Saturday the 18th, 10 a.m. to 12:30 lunchtime in UK time, which will be a Zoom workshop for really being a light for yourself in these darker months, finding warmth, finding pleasure, finding the resource within a season that can be challenging for a lot of people. So we're going to have various experiential tasters and walkthrough experiences, as well as inviting participants to bring their own inquiry at the beginning. So what do they want from this, or how would they most like to be in the darker months, for example? And so we journey with that inquiry through the 2.5 hours. And so we're just as much inviting the participants' own knowing, even their hidden knowings especially, and their own somatic goodness that they already may be in touch with or not so in touch with, parts of them that know something about this inquiry. And so we're just accompanying people with that evolution while adding some perhaps useful tips in case people need to, or feel the need to, build more technology for themselves in their own nervous system around this season, because we do our best. That's what the Aliveness Lab is all about, really. Like, everyone's doing their best with the hand they're dealt. And so people will have strengths, and even perhaps overplayed strengths, in how they meet the world. And so they're already very rich in what they already know, how they cope, or how they flourish, how they prosper. And what we're doing is just kind of maybe showing little hidden cards in the deck, which maybe people hadn't tried before or already know, to deepen into what they already know, and or to develop a little more new wiring, perhaps a little inner ability to have more resource types up their sleeve should they need them.
It's very nice, because the change of season can actually be quite challenging for many people, and in some ways, it's what's really nice about the way you're wording that is making this conscious and inviting your own wisdom, and then some tools and tips that you're bringing to engage with these changes and what they might mean. So that seems really nice. I was just thinking, if you didn't know about football and you had a match on telly, it might sound like a noise, but if somebody guided you to say, that team has that specialism, that team has that person's story is this, you're invited in. And there's something about you saying you inviting the person's wisdom and stories, maybe, or narratives, and then also you're bringing tools. And I saw a little video you'd made about lighting up the hearth. I really loved that, because it sounded a little bit, like Scottish or Welsh or Irish culture, that kind of like people round the hearth with songs and music, but something about lighting up the hearth, and also somatic visualization. So I wondered if you could speak to this lighting up the hearth and somatic visualization, or all these things, like you said, pleasure and the body. What are these pieces and tools that you're talking about?
Yeah, so if people haven't done somatic work overtly before, quite a nice analogy sometimes is to compare it to hypnotherapy, where you might say that the whole imagination is somatic. Everyone has probably come across that thing of imagining biting into a lemon and your taste buds immediately start responding. And so that's the sort of wiring that we're playing with there, because we're inviting in this workshop images of light, of the sort of warmth that individual would respond to. It's not the next person's version of a happy hearth, perhaps. So leaving hopefully enough space is the aim, to have and elicit the kind of qualities that one would like to have if you were lighting a hearth for all parts of you to gather round. I once had an end of year session with a client who we'd done lots of parts work. So if people might or might not be aware of parts work, but you can have child parts, adult parts in the system. And this client was aware of kind of wrapping up for the year. And it was almost like he was inviting all the parts of himself in and tucking them in, and they were all almost celebrating together. And it was such a sweet image and such a warming, welcoming, inclusive image. And I just feel, and I think Rachel feels, that when we have such times as we're living in, with so much polarity and inner polarization, I like this part of me, I don't like that part of me, I struggle with this, I don't struggle with that, I want more of this, but I hate that. You know, sometimes it can be really useful to create an inner environment where we're sort of egalitarian and we have a kind of equanimity and a loving warmth towards all of these parts that have something to say. And maybe we can imagine and sense and invite these very qualities that we want to be more of in ourselves. Maybe we feel we want some warmth, just basic heat or warmth. And we might ask the people or the listener to just sense where there is warmth in your body. Where is there a pleasing warmth in your body? What other qualities might you want? More warmth? Find somewhere else in your body that has that warmth. Connectedness, maybe? Where's somewhere in your body that knows something about connectedness? And you can, if you like, join up those parts into a kind of constellation, or just leave them as they are, as, you know, discrete moments in your body. That's fine. And then just kind of having this invitation to gather yourself around this welcome that means good things to you, these qualities that you would seek out. Yeah,
that's very nourishing and inviting. And I'm curious, because of, obviously you're doing the year and the seasons, but we're talking about the darker months, and I'm curious about darkness, because of, you know, that was so sweet the way you said that, because, you know, sometimes darker months could be confronting, could be difficult, could be I feel like I want to stay in, but it's a kind of crouching in. But the way you said that was a kind of, it was lovely, inviting into the warmth or connectedness. And I'm just curious about you, where the darkness comes in, because this idea that people often say that it's quite good to, you know, go to sleep in a lot of darkness, or have a lot of darkness earlier in the night, and actually let darkness be there. And I know somebody who's running workshops which are dark, in the dark. People go on workshop, yes, they're darkness workshops, to
so
all to be together, maybe with some music or different ideas, but to be in darkness in your home on a Zoom workshop. So I'm wondering about that darkness, whether that's in this, your somatic resourcing with the darker months. I'm wondering whether darkness is there.
Yeah, definitely, because as much as we've been talking about the soft glow of the embers of the warming that might be appropriate to that season, Rachel will be taking people on a journey into the darkness. So really capitalizing on what the earth knows at this time, you know, going really into the season just as it is, without trying to change it, without trying to artificially heat it up, you know, because one of the things that we're trying to invite here, I guess, is the lost art of hibernation, and what goodness there is in that, just recapturing our plant self, our deep mammalian self, that if we didn't have our artificial light and our fridges and our ovens, what would we be doing? How would we be spending this time? How few daylight hours would we really be active? And so, as much as possible most of our listeners will be in the industrialized nations, I'm sure, but it's, to really harvest what you can from the season's innate coming inwards, as you say.
And I really like that about, your naming of making coming in quite a nourishing experience, and the kind of embracing different parts and coming in. I remember somebody said to me once that they had a little bed with a pillow and eider down, just open a little bit, ready to invite someone in to their heart. And I thought it was a really sweet image, but also maybe that the way you're naming it is we can be invited into this darkness, into this hibernation, into what does that mean for us, because going in can be scary, because darkness can be seen as scary. And it's interesting, what's that like to find out what's your version, or how you would like that, or because when we're kids we made dens, we made places that were dark. Yes. deliberately little hidden things, or children would hide behind a pillow, even if they weren't really hidden, they thought they were hidden if they put something over their face. So there's something nice, it's something playful about you talking about visualization and connected and parts and something. What do you think about the way you're doing this?
And we would love it to be as playful as possible, and as enriching as possible, because just as you say, when we're children, we have maybe a more interesting relationship with the dark. We're not just sort of batting it away. It's the place of mystery, it's the place of the unknown, it's the fertile dark and the fertile void in a way. So, and it is a place of the fairy tale and the magic of the starry night. So there are so many interesting non-polarizing realizations and discoveries to be had in this kind of open relationship that we might have with the dark. It's there whether we want it or not, at least half of the time. So it makes sense that we would re-embrace it. It's a little bit like people discovering a new relationship with cold, as is really common now.
Yes. Do you want to say more about that? That's interesting, isn't it? There is.
Well, you are doing more cold water swimming than me, but I think it's
well, I have been. I haven't in the last couple of weeks, but I have done. Yes, it's lovely. Yes.
What's it giving you? Because to sort of invite
aliveness. It's and community. Aliveness and community, because there's something really interesting about going with other people cold water swimming, and this amazing sense of regularity, of regularly going cold water swimming with other people, and the turn of, like the seasons, the turn of life. So if one person's having a baby, another person's got a health issue, another person's got a job interview, another person, there's this kind of turn of life, and it kind of allows things to be real and regular. So if one person's got a lot going on, another might go, I get that. It's something very real, going swimming with other people, and just people being real together in the water, just as they are. It's kind of interesting.
And held by a ritual is so lovely. It reminds me of what you're saying, reminds me of the film Smoke, Sauna, Sisterhood. Right. So it's the power of having a holding container that is sometimes just what you want, and sometimes deeply uncomfortable, and sometimes, but it's raw, it's alive, it's of the elements. And I think that's what we're saying across the board, really, aren't we?
Yeah. And I think there's something really lovely about I think there's something very special about creating experiences as a group, even though, like you said, one-to-one is lovely, but something as a group. And like you said, bringing ideas together that can be brought together and given as a group. And so the kind of group experience of being held, even though everybody's experience is different, there's something about you bringing themes and ideas woven together for a group. What other thoughts? You've got visualization, you've got cold, you've got dark, you've got stories. I don't know if you're bringing stories in, or whether that's just in each person's own being, their own stories, maybe.
I would say more that way. We will have guided journeys, but leaving as much space for the person to fill in the blanks for themselves, because really, although we're available to share tools and sort of intersperse and sprinkle and mulch in what we know, we want to leave a lot of space for what people already may have stashed away in their own systems, consciously or unconsciously. My clients always amaze me about how much wisdom they have if they can hear themselves. It's just amazing.
So it's a kind of journey into knowing yourself, but with invitational spaces to come into that.
Yeah, exactly. So people can share as much or as little as they want, and it's exactly what you just said. And it's a story. You could say it's a story, but we're picking up where that person's story is currently, what their relationship to the darker months is now, and then maybe a chapter unfolds in the time of that workshop, or the potential for a slightly different perspective, or, as we say, something hidden, a hidden jewel to come out.
And what happens with people who live more in the city or more in the countryside, or what happens with all of those different dimensions as well?
Good question. Yeah, because some people will be naturally closer to the earth and the rhythms, and some people will be really having to work hard to shut out the intrusions of non-seasonal specific noise and light and our artificial construct. So yeah, exactly. Everyone's genuinely starting in a different place, in a unique place.
And also, what happens with fear of the dark and the cold and the unknown, which is also normal and natural.
I think that is just a question right there, because and I wouldn't be naive enough to try to answer that now, because I think what we're going to, in the workshop at least, create holding container and inner guidance and somatic allies to accompany and help people to be with fear, because there's nothing unnatural about that. As you say, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with fear of the unknown, and all of us might benefit from grabbing our ally and our tools, whatever they may be, in order to have relationship with fear and with dark, cold, aloneness. It's really a potent thing to be with.
What might an ally be?
So in somatic resourcing work, you might call in a guide from nature, a little bit as you would in more indigenous practices. That may be a guide that knows a little something about this challenge from nature. You might, a mountain might appear to you, or an animal might appear to you. Maybe you might call in a healed ancestor who knows a little more than us modern humans. You know, we really invite people to be confident in their imagination, but also none of the imaginal dimensions may appeal to someone, and we may literally stay with your heart, or your rooted legs, or your solidity. That is just as potent. Yeah, allies come in many forms, I think. Your wisest self might be one, you know.
And I suppose a lot of this is the rhythmic voice that you and Rachel hold, and your presence to invite in a curious, explorative way to open a space, which ultimately is about the person, but to give that holding with your own presence and your own voices to that dimension.
Yeah, exactly. And it's I think you just named another ally there, in the form of curiosity. That's our biggest ally, about having choicefulness and different angles to look at challenge or the unknown with. Yeah.
And what was it for you? Obviously, you've done many body trainings and many somatic trainings, and so many different, attachment theory and psychological trainings, as well as being a musician, and then also developing Lullaby to be a somatic resource to help calm the nervous system. But what was it that took you into this journeying with the body psychotherapeutically and in a coaching sense? What's taken you here? What brought you here to do this?
Yeah. Well, I had various challenges myself, with PTSD and with chronic pain, and I really was not helped that much. I had some beautiful therapists that worked with me, and body workers that worked with me over the years, and everyone added something. But I really found this interface of the somatic way, and this word is bandied around a lot, and it's hard to completely define what it is, but it's how your, for me anyway, it's how your felt sense, or how your embodied sensations and energies link and dovetail in with your emotions and thoughts. So you don't have this kind of king of your reality being your brain's thoughts, basically. Obviously you're experiencing everything through your brain, so it is part of your body, but it's sort of just changing the lens to include more of yourself, the more of the sensations, more of the images that sort of bubble up from one's awareness, more of your impulses, and those might not have so much room in talking therapy as it was traditionally done. A good therapist is a good therapist, but it's a sort of different toolkit, I would say. So yeah, and it just helped me across the board. And when I was training in all these somatic modalities at that time, and still, there is this kind of interweaving of somatics must equal trauma work, and it's not actually the case, because somatics includes so many indigenous, practices, dance, song, our ancient roots are somatic, ritual, and dream work, and gosh, just herbalism, Feldenkrais, yoga. You just could go on and on about what is already there as somatic work. And I and Rachel also really wanted to harvest the life-giving potentials of somatic work, so that it doesn't always have to be about trauma, doesn't always have to be about anxiety management, because people will come across trauma in day to day, probably, overwhelming experience, shall we say. And we don't always need to name it and elicit it and call it up in a space. So, for instance, this workshop, we're saying it may have a therapeutic benefit, but it's not therapy. We're not aiming to delve into the trauma vortices that we might have, but actually to turn our eye to the goodness and the already working, and the how we already know how to meet ourselves. Because that the resourcing part of therapy is just so hugely beneficial, about tools and tips and deepeners and relationship building with oneself, and then out to nature, out with the world. There's so much connectedness to be had that that's very much where I'm pointing at the moment.
That seems so relevant, because thanks to you, I'm engaged in learning deep brain reorienting.
Yes.
Dr. Frank Corrigan,
Yes.
again, somatic, and to do with the deep brain and somatic sequencing and releasing feelings, affect, as well as shock. And it's amazing. But I recommended it to someone, and their first session was to release something joyful. And they experienced joy all that week. So it's a methodology where you can release a present moment trigger, and it'll open a file. You do it very safely, very slowly, to release a trigger, something in your life. It's causing you to experience sensations or feelings or emotions, thoughts, and there's a possibility of releasing the shock and the feelings around that. And so this person was guided to bring up something joyful, and that it amplified it. And that's in a way what I'm hearing you're saying with the workshop. And it makes sense, because we come understandably from a world about fixing and sorting, don't we? Which is understandable, and that's very helpful. And there's also that kind of opening and amplifying the good, which is interesting. Like you're saying, and they can be both, and can't it? So it's
I see it really as a figure of eight. Like you harvest your resources, it makes the trauma have or stress, or whatever we call it, in enlarging experience, shall we say. It gives it a bigger container. It can infiltrate. They can mix. We can grow into our difficult experiences with support and help and tons of resource. And I think what I've also got from the deep brain reorienting model is a new view on how much shock we have as a species, that makes us hypervigilant, and I think leads to what you're saying, the fix it mentality. We've only survived as a species, as many have said, through our hypervigilance, and hypervigilance is part of shock. So I think, Peter Levine has said it, and I certainly find it very well met in deep brain reorienting, that moment of fizz, like the moment of that, when you first unscrew that carbonated drink, to help that to have more time in therapeutic work is very, very useful, to help us land that initial, oh my God, what was that? Whether it was good or bad, because it sounds like your friend, may have had a positive shock, a positive fizz.
Yeah.
For me, shock isn't good or bad. It's just like what was that?
Yeah, that's so interesting. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Like dating or getting a job someone wants, it can be quite confrontational and can bring up parts of, do I want this? Do I like this? Do I want it? Because it can be quite shocking even that to be wanted, even
Yes.
if it's what one wants, it can be confronting. So that's, yeah, how to help release shock around, because it can really make the nervous system go on overdrive.
Mhm.
Excitement about what somebody wants, it can be quite hard to regulate with that. So it's interesting, isn't it? Doesn't have to be good or bad. It's kind of, there can be shocks in different experiences. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's just so interesting where the neuroscience of somatic therapy is headed, because once you know what shock feels like and what it does and the effects of long-term shock in terms of jumpiness and the brain hopping from one subject to the other, and that fizziness in the nervous system, and sleeplessness, or that is purely, you could say, the shock held in the system in the brain, rather than always seeing it as the later stages of fight flight. It's not necessarily the defenses. I could talk about this for ages, but it's just
so helpful. That is so helpful because in the deep brain reorienting, you have a chance to sequence and allow that to move through.
exactly.
So
And
that, so sleep, and even they were talking about pain, the
yes,
potential of allowing pain to be with it, and slowly, in a slow way, and allow whatever, if it's possible, to have a sequence, to have a movement, or yeah,
yeah, it's amazing.
incredible. So
I
that's
think,
lovely about that fizziness,
yeah,
which which is so regular in life in so many different ways, and how that has a possibility to to move.
yes, exactly. And then once we've given that enough time, it can more smoothly move into emotional processing and more smoothly through the defenses, and then more smoothly into the pain. But if you've taken off all that sort of excitatory shock, or sort of allowed the drink to become flatter, as it were, then it's been really a game changer for me to learn more about that neuroscience, because how we have been seeing the stress response has been all about the defenses, all about the sort of fight, flight, freeze, and that's its own category, but it's not shock. And
That's so interesting. That's so interesting. And also because, Babette Rothschild did this whole thing about the Coke bottle thing,
mm,
doing it slowly, that you want to release slowly, but actually looking at that as shock,
yeah,
just not just fight, flight, freeze, fix, or whatever it's
yeah,
shock. And then also attachment, so what's going on in attachment, or how we relate, because it's multidimensional really, but so much will be going on, isn't it? But if some of that can get released,
yeah,
then the potential to notice what might be there
yeah,
or not there.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Not there. And I think it's just so lovely to have these nuances. It's so lovely to have this, making enough time for the shock, the emotions, the defenses, and the pain as different elements
Yeah.
of the process. Because I was asking Frank Corrigan, like, are the hidden elements the shock and the pain? And he said pretty much yes, because the emotions and the defenses are so loud and so quick to come in that we can spend ages just circling around those two elements in your PAG in the brain. But you're looking at slightly different areas of the brain to release the shock, and a different area again to uh, uh, sense into your pain and help that to be felt. And the clients can feel it. It's quite amazing once they know that they're looking for 4 elements, it's like, yeah. The client said to me today, or the other day, the pain is on another level. And that's exactly what it's like in the brain. They were with grief, but they could tell that pain was almost like a different shelf. And it's quite amazing. It's so interesting for people to have that kind of brain hygiene, I think, of just like, have we given your brain the chance, your nervous system, to have enough time for all those elements to come through?
It's so extraordinary, because a bit like having a tidy garden,
Yeah.
that it's possible to have a moderate and tidy, emotional, literate life. And the multidimensionality that can now be taken on board by potentially therapist and client, and the understanding what's going on in the brain, including, the cannabinoids and the opioids, and what is someone switching off, and because they've accessed a different part of their brain, or are they getting another experience? And actually, if you slow it down and make sure they've connected with their deep brain and the trigger in a certain way, and make sure it's slow enough to help them release it's so. And the way you're naming it, the 4 parts, what are the 4 parts? The
shock, emotions, and defenses, because they come from the PAG, the periaqueductal grey, and then pain, which comes from the dorsal raphe nucleus, which is a slightly different part. And the shock is coming from the locus coeruleus. So they are literal different parts. And how I see it is, trying to process what happens to us in life, if we don't do it slowly and sort of in a more sort of separating it out as much as possible, so that we can come together and feel more integrated later, it's really worth sort of like eking out those 4. It's, I don't know. I don't even know what I was going to say. My mind is blown.
Well, the beauty about the slowness and the actuality, like you saying, navigating where someone is in the brain and staying with the intricacy, but in the level of slowness, is, to me, it's like, it looks like birth. It looks like birth, because if someone stays in contact, there's something real and actual with that contact, which is different to overwhelm, which also could happen, but and navigating that, but there's this actual contact, and in that contact, the different sequencing, the different releasing, and it's very co-collaborative. So the client can tell, and the therapist also, it seems to me, gets an experience of a session too, because they're holding space with the client. They're both holding space of presence.
Yes.
So it seems like a new world of therapy, a new dimension. It's not staying separate and cognitive in a way. It's actually staying very close, but it's co-collaborative. It's it's not being anywhere else other than the here and now, but navigating the here and now in a very slow way that allows someone to witness themselves and allow that sequencing or releasing in a very specific, slow way, where they get to know themselves.
Exactly. I think the thing about this way of working is that the person stays in the observer role, because part of the setup being finding a little tension around the orienting muscles at the beginning, and that just makes it so non-overwhelming for the client. They can really they stay in witness, and they're feeling all those states that you just said through the body. So the sensation, so the client ends up noticing if they're slipping up to the upper brain levels. Are they starting to do narrative? Are they starting to go into parts work even? And then just coming back to sensation, just it's like getting a lift downwards again, and then continuing. And I think I remember what I was going to say before, in that the overwhelm, I think, happens because of different parts of the brain trying to process all at once. And this work says locus coeruleus first, then the PAG, emotions and defenses, and then the dorsal raphe nucleus. And so it's not like 4 horses trying to cram out of one gate, which would put anyone off feeling their feelings.
So that's shock, emotions, defenses, and pain.
Yeah.
It makes so much sense, doesn't it? It makes
It's
so much
really
sense.
elegant. Our bodies are elegant. Our biology is so elegant. And I'm so grateful to, the developers of this model, Frank Corrigan, especially for, taking the time looking at fMRI scans to get this knowledge, to really see, but, is it the amygdala that's the main, starting point of the stress response, or does it start way before then? But we're talking about milliseconds before, but it's really significant milliseconds, really starting at the onset of the event, the stressful event. When did it start to go wrong? So you can get the shock. So you're not just catapulted into the deep sea from the beginning of the emotions when you're just swimming for dear life and everything's too overwhelming, because shock's still there.
It's so clear and so specific and so helpful, because the client is in the process witnessing it as the therapist is holding space co-collaboratively and safely, because they've brought their deep brain on, they're witnessing it and they're going through the stages, and they get it. Even if they leave for a moment and they're guided back, they get that they may have left for a moment, then they come back, or they may go to a more cognitive place and then guided back. They get that these are patterns they might have, but they get when they're there. They get it seems. And it's so incredible to be in this time and place in life, where people are teaching this level of brain science in such a level of detail to therapists who may not be brain scientists or doctors or nurses, may not have a medical background, but are being taught this level of information about the body so that they can work with someone.
Yeah, exactly.
And the client gets it. Something extraordinary. And the generosity of that.
Yeah.
This teaching, and that it's come in now. I mean, probably, and you would know more than me, that this body-informed trauma work has probably been going for eons.
Oh, yeah.
But it does seem like more and more is coming in that joins up the dots, and people are giving us this research. And I wondered, when you're teaching as well, like a workshop, if you bring your big brain, your deep brain on, if that also helps you run a workshop, because you can kind of bring your deep brain, your observer on, with allowing that flow and that slowness in the workshop. I wondered that too.
Yeah, definitely. Because the bit that we haven't named is the superior colliculi, which is part of the setup of a deep brain reorienting session, of coming into the part of your brain between your earlobes that knows exactly where you are right now and can sense the dimensions of the room and the ceiling height and all this, and where you literally are on the planet right now. And having that awareness and having at least part of your thinking energy between your earlobes can be such a lovely thing, because this part knows where your shoulders are, where your hips are, where your feet are, your inner structure. It can see out of your eyes, because that's how the wiring goes. It can hear out of your ears. You have wiring from your superior colliculi to your hearing, and you can draw yourself into there anytime. And also, what's so lovely about the setup of DBR that I sometimes encourage my clients to do is to drop even from between the earlobes down a little bit into their brainstem awareness, because it gives a little sense of just being alive in a body, and just because it has the energy centers of that enlivens our thoughts and feelings further up in the brain, and you can just sense you can just embody that. You just pop into that little bulb or the top of your spine, and just kind of think and feel from there. Why not?
So just below, just behind the throat. Do you mean that? Where do you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, so you would be right on top of your spine as the spinal cord becomes the brain. Deep. It's almost like the heart of your
Yeah.
of your brain. And it's nice to have a picture, like if people want to look up the brainstem, look up what it looks like, and it's just this sweet little bulb, really. And why not just pop yourself in there if you want a moment of just being alive?
Brilliant.
Think from there, think and feel from there. Feel you know what's going on in your body. Think of something you like about yourself from there.
Brilliant.
You know, like
Simple. So lovely.
so beautiful.
So beautiful. Well, thank you, Kate, Daisy Grant. It's been so wonderful. Bless your heart. And more books, more workshops, and more ideas and more somatic resourcing through the season. So thank you very much. And
Thanks, Kate.
all the details below. So thank you so much.
Lovely to speak with you.
So good, so good. So that was the lovely Kate Daisy Grant talking about the darker months and somatic resourcing and different ways to consider the cold, the dark, going inward, snuggling in, resourcing up, visualising, connecting. Hope that gave you something, gave you some nurturing. I hope that it gives you some thoughts to think about. And if you want to explore her wonderful courses and books with Rachel Blackman, you can look below for the links. Thanks.